We're in early Victorian England. A young woman named Mary Lamb is locked away, branded violently as mad, not because she's dangerous, but because her grief, her anger, her very nature doesn't fit society's idea of femininity. Why was Mary's mind a prison? And how did the culture around her decide when a woman lost her reason? The story of women and madness is tangled. Let's pull that thread. In 19th century England, madness wasn't just illness. It was a mirror for what society feared most about women and how they should behave. Mary Lamb, sister of the poet Charles Lamb, was institutionalized after she killed her mother during a psychotic episode in 1796. Society didn't just see Mary as mentally ill, they saw her as a cautionary tale of a woman's dangerous interior. Her story was retold for decades to illustrate how fragile, how inherently unstable female minds supposedly were. Imagine madness in women as a lock and key game. The lock being gender roles and expectations, the key a woman's behavior. When a woman strayed from submission, piety, or passivity, she appeared mad. Showalter describes this like a cultural thermostat controlling women. Step too far and you got branded unstable. Madness wasn't just medical, it was social control wired into psychiatry. By the late 19th century, medical opinions shifted. Women's madness was no longer just seen as hysteria or possession, but caught between biology and culture. Doctors started to diagnose female malady as conditions like neurasthenia or depression, but the underlying assumptions about femininity, fragile, emotional, reproductive, remained. It rewrote madness as a gendered identity, not just a health issue. Madness got a makeover through medical science, but the new face of diagnosis carried old prejudices in fancy lab coats. Hysteria was the superstar diagnosis for nearly 2 centuries. Women fanning themselves, swooning faintly, or describing nervousness were instantly candidates for this catch-all disorder. Famous patients like Emma Bovary were retrospectively linked to it. Doctors and hysterics performed the drama society expected, madness as emotional spectacle. But hysteria's popularity faded when it became harder to define or control medically. Enter neurasthenia, the nervous exhaustion mainly plaguing middle-class women juggling societal expectations and new freedoms. This diagnosis sounded sophisticated, treating symptoms like fatigue or irritability as a product of the modern woman's strained mind. Think of neurasthenia as the Victorian burnout, a fashionable illness expressing real distress, yet still shackled by gender stereotypes. Despite new labels and medical language, mental illnesses in women remained poorly understood. The science often fell short, but cultural narratives didn't. Madness stayed a story about who women were allowed to be: fragile, emotional, irrational. Showalter reveals this persistent gap, how culture writes the medical stories we believe about women's minds. As women fought for rights, mental illness definitions didn't just follow science, they became battlegrounds over identity and power. In early 20th century England, women who defied social norms were sometimes labeled mentally ill to silence them. Radical feminists and suffragettes risked being diagnosed as hysterics or paranoics simply for demanding equality. Madness here acted as a weapon to discredit female agency, keeping women in their place under the guise of medical care. From the 1930s on, psychoanalysis and talk therapy introduced a new approach, questioning strict gender roles embedded in psychiatric care. Women were encouraged to explore their inner lives rather than just be corrected. Yet this therapy still wrestled with cultural expectations. Freedom came with careful navigation of old stereotypes and new pressures. Showalter turns the last page, asking how women can reclaim madness as a part of their identity instead of a mark of shame. Madness, she suggests, can be a powerful symbol of resistance, a refusal to conform to roles designed to silence. It's not just illness but lived experience pointing toward liberation. Remember Mary Lamb in that cold Victorian asylum. Her tragic story isn't just history, it's a lens on how we define and control what's normal for women's minds. Next time you hear mental illness discussed, ask, whose story is being told? Try this: whenever you meet a woman's madness label, think deeper. Is this about health or is it about culture shaping her fate? Subscribe for more book summaries like this one.